Go. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Quinlay Erickson, welcome to Aaron's Opinion. My first question is, so please tell the audience, who are you? Who is Quinlay Erickson?
Well, thanks, Aaron, for inviting me. It's a pleasure. So I am a Vietnamese person who came to Canada in 1994 as a refugee, a boat person. And I'm visually impaired. I'm totally blind. So I'm not sure how detailed would you like me to talk about myself.
A-
uh,
As
uh-huh.
as much as you would like. Sure. Okay.
Okay. Well, let me tell you maybe a little bit of my background before I came to Canada. So there's a bit of a context why I have decided to become a psychotherapist. So I was born in Vietnam, and I was born with perfect sight. So no one in my family has any vision loss or anything like that. And so when I was about 2 years old, I started to um, experience fever, and my I started to have what they called I think cross eyes in English, right? And so then it's a but at first it just I could still see, but just the way I looked at things was different. So then my mom and my parents continued to take me to, the doctors there. And I was in Vietnam then, which at that time and still is now a very poor country. So, I mean, lots of people don't even have money to go and see doctors. So my parents did have some money, and they would take me to doctors, and he would, give injections and things like that, but nothing seemed to really improve. And then a few months after that, my mom said one day she came home, and I started to feel around to look for her. And then she really realized that I lost my sight. And so, if you could imagine, how upsetting that would be for a parent. So my parents at the time, they were like probably middle class people. So they worked really hard, and often they would leave me at home with a babysitter who would be probably like a teenager or something like that. But at that time, then my mom would stop working and would just take me to different places, to look for ways to restore my vision. Anywhere from staying in the hospital in the big city to um, going to doctors and uh, superstitious figures, temples, all kinds of things, you name it. And but my eyesight continued to suffer. So after a while, they started to give up on the idea of restoring my sight in Vietnam. Then my mostly my mom, she decided to, my dad too, but my dad was is not keen about it. But my mom really wanted to leave Vietnam to come to a country like Canada. So not only could our family's future improve significantly, but she was also hoping that they could restore my sight. Um, and at that time, leaving Vietnam, like trying to escape Vietnam that way, would be considered illegal. So if you were caught, you would be placed in prison. And so my family tried to escape Vietnam a few times, and finally, so in one of the times we were caught, and as a 7-year-old girl, I was in prison for about a few weeks with my mom and my sister, and my dad would be in prison a lot longer, for like 6 months, because at the time, and still is now, Vietnam is under the communist regime, so very strict. And I remember, one of the memories in Vietnam for me was I would be on the street with my mom, and I would hear someone playing guitar, singing, and begging for money. And my mom explained to me that this is a blind beggar. And so at that time in Vietnam, if you're blind, you could only go to school for about a few years, getting basic education, and after that, either you would have to fend for yourself or be supported by family members. And in the streets of Vietnam, even sighted people have a hard time making a living, let alone people who cannot see. So the future for a person like me, a blind person, would be very bleak in Vietnam. And so finally, when I was 9, in one of the last attempts, we were successful to escape Vietnam. And escaping Vietnam at the time would be by boat. So if you could imagine, there would be 126 people, all crammed on a small fishing boat. I don't really know how small it really was, but all I remember is the way that we had to sit. We would have to fold our legs. We couldn't even straight our legs. And I would be sitting in my mom's lap. And so, you know, uh, we were lost in the sea for, I think, probably about 10 days, because by the third day, the boat would stop running and food and water started to run out. We were like in this big ocean, and yeah, it was pretty scary. And then so the water started to come into the boat and it started to sink. And so lots of people would have to, get the water out of the boat. But not only that, we ran into pirates. They would be like uh, Thai pirates. And this was very common in those days, where Thai pirates would target Vietnamese boat people to rob, jewelries and whatever that they would bring with them. So, but they also would sexually assault some women on the boat too. And I was young then, and my mom was, really holding me close to her and kind of like throwing up on top of us so that we would be undesirable, so that the pirates could ignore us. And we were really lucky, because often when Vietnamese boat people encounter pirates like that, they would typically, would take some girls, a young woman with them, would sell them for prostitution, because in Thailand, prostitution is very common, as you know. And then they would crash the boat. But these were not real pirates. I think they were more fishermen who took advantage of the opportunity. And so, yeah, finally we left. They left us alone, and our boat continued to be in the sea. And then finally we were rescued by a big ship. They said that they were Germans. So they took us to a refugee camp in Indonesia. And so there I stayed in that refugee camp for 4 years. And so, yeah, the 4 years in there, was really challenging. If you could imagine, each one of us would receive 3 small cans of sardines a month, and 3 cups of rice a week, and 3 packages of noodles a week as well. Those Mr. Noodle package that you would get in a store? Yeah, 3 of those per week. Or those cans of sardine you would get from the store, 3 of those. And so we would sleep in barracks, lying on wooden platform that would run from one end of the barrack to the other. So each person would be allowed, I don't know, a few feet of that area, something like that. So, yeah, living there, it was really challenging, but we I also received a lot of love and care and from people. Because one thing about that kind of setting is that some people, they continue to be extremely nice and compassionate and giving with each other. And other people, they would become very um, greedy, and they would fight with each other for silly things. But I also learned in that lifestyle was that, hope and how you think is very important. Some people, they were hopeless. They would commit suicide. They would volunteer to go back to Vietnam, despite how hard it was to escape it. Yet some other people, they made the best of every day. They continue to be optimistic. They continue to be to do what they could to survive, to have a meaningful time. And so I think that was what really implant some kind of seed in my mind about how I could be a therapist later on to help people make the best of their minds and their hearts. And so after I came to Canada, I was 14 then, but I started grade 9 right away, even though I only had grade 2 education in Vietnam. And so that was also challenging. And my English at that time was probably equivalent to that of a 2-year-old. And I went to a school for the blind in Ontario, Canada. And I think that was what I really needed, because I did go to a sighted school for about 3 months, and I felt really isolated there because I couldn't speak English. I couldn't, I was like a new immigrant. But in this school for the blind, I got to try things that I never tried before, like baseball and goalball and canoeing, camping, skiing, and snowmobiling and all kinds of things, and I was surrounded by people who were kind and good to me. And so that really helped to slowly increase my self-esteem. And then I graduated. First, I went to college for 2 years to improve my English. Then I did a BA in psychology. And then I finally did a master's in counseling psychology. And so that's how I became the therapist that I am today.
Perfect. I've heard your story before. I want to maximize the episode, so I'll certainly send you a message a little later about it. But I have heard that story many times. Yes.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yes. I'll tell you about it later. But so
Oh.
now we definitely know who you are. You're an outstanding speaker, by the way. I completely understood you, and really, really good. All right, fine.
Oh, thank you.
So, what is now we know who you are, okay? But what is Quyn Lai therapy?
What is Quyn Lai therapy? I have worked for different places. I worked at different, like the hospital setting and the mental health and addiction rehab center, and even the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and different places. And I've gained a lot of experiences. So I decided to, the last few years, I decided to do open a private practice. And so the private practice is called Quyn Lai Therapy, Quyn, and Lai is LE therapy, Quyn Lai Therapy. And so I see people in my office in a small town called Powell River, which is right by the ocean. My office is actually waterfront, so it's really nice, and it's a home office. My husband turned a carport into a beautiful waterfront home office. But because Powell River is a small town, I also see people online or on the phone. And so people could be in the US, people could be in Canada. And I really love it. I enjoy it. It's just the freedom and the gratification, how rewarding it is to be able to help people. Because people, they would work with me, receive my therapy, and then they see the results within a few sessions, or several sessions, depending on how complicated their issues are. And then they would talk about my work with other people. So that's very so actually a lot of my clients, probably 90% of them, are referred by word of mouth, and so even way more than by the internet. So, but I do EMDR, which is a form of therapy that helps to shift and help to shift certain negative emotions and beliefs and sensations in the body, but beliefs in the mind and the feelings, so that those things that are negative did not affect the person so much. So it's a form of bilateral stimulation. It stimulates both sides of the brain to calm down the negative emotional part of the brain called the limbic system, and to um, optimize the other part of the brain, which is the frontal cortex, that allows us to think more clearly and have a clear perspective about certain issues. I also do hypnotherapy. The hypnotherapy is a way to resolve certain things in the unconscious mind, like certain beliefs, certain things that happened to us in the past, but they not resolved. So then they keep following us somehow. They keep bugging us somehow. So those two things, when I combine EMDR and hypnotherapy, um, I'm able to help people achieve really great results. Sometimes they could be struggling with something for years or decades, and they would have 3 to 10 sessions with me, and they would talk about how much it profoundly shifts how they think about themselves, how they approach life. So that's about Quyn therapy.
No, I understand. I think that's really important around the community. I mean, having nothing to do with the blindness aspect of it, I think that
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people who at least one time in their life have been to a therapist, or probably at least two times in their life should have gone to a therapist. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's really, your work is really critical, especially in these trying times. The other specific question I want to learn more about from you is, I see a lot around the blindness community on Facebook. And quite frankly, I'm just so glad you're here, for one. For another, I forget where you posted, your post or whatever it is. I forget how I noticed you in the around the community. But one thing I see in the community is just so much negativity in the community. And I was speaking with another content creator who's going to come to the show later this week, and I was telling her that I think one of the problems that we need to solve in the blindness community and the content creation community is that there are so many blind people and content creators who constantly cut each other down. And there's so much negativity within the community, especially between people who should be supporting each other, that it's really preventing a lot of blind people. Like, well, I mean, not preventing me, because I already have my own show. I do this
Mm-hmm.
because I want to. But what I'm saying is, all this negativity is preventing a lot of blind people from standing up and sharing their opinion and connecting with others. So, how can we solve this problem? What do you think about all of that?
I totally agree with you, because there's a little bit of jealousy when a blind person is doing well, and then there's a little bit of I feel sorry for myself because I haven't accomplished certain things. So, but also, yeah, it's and it's really. a shame because a lot of people who visually impaired, they also do really well. And I think we need to hear from each other and learn from each other. Like when I see a therapist who's doing excellent, instead of being jealous, I think of what can I learn from that therapist? How can I don't have to be like her or like him, but what can I be inspired by? You know? And so like someone like you doing interviewing people and doing podcasts, I think that's great. And I also love interviewing experts who can uh, help other people. So it's not just coming hearing from me. So I think that help each other, like support each other to grow. If we're struggling, we can encourage each other. Um, it's one thing to validate the struggles. Like, yeah, I hear you. I know it's tough. It's being visually impaired is not easy. Having a disability is not easy. Living life in at COVID time is not easy, right? So it's not to minimize people's suffering or people's struggles, but also to encourage them, to help them to grow. And when you see people do well, be happy for them. Give them compliments, acknowledge their work, acknowledge their efforts. And instead of feeling sad about yourself for not get doing those things, be inspired by those things, or ask yourself how can I create my own path? How can I, so I don't have to be, you know, I don't have to walk those exact paths because that may not be what I like, but I can certainly create my own path. So that's what I think.
Yeah, yeah. And that when someone is successful in our community, it's a collective success. So that means that we were all successful if someone reaches a benchmark or reaches a milestone. But people do not seem to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, and and even I mean, I'm sure you already know this in life, but just to let you know, even though that I was born in the United States somewhere,
Yeah,
my life has still been difficult. Even though I'm American, my life has still been difficult, even with my disability, even in the United States.
that's right.
Some people, well, see, I mean, you understand it because of your life experiences, Quinn, but others would say other people around the world have this view of North America that nothing is wrong and everything's perfect, and that if you're born there, everything's perfect forever, which couldn't really be further from the truth, but that's what a lot of people think. So,
Mm-hmm.
I've had to deal with a lot of grossly, gross ignorance and a lot of different problems. But it is those types of problems are actually growing, I think, in our society. And I think the longer that we stay in this situation of diseases and COVID and this whole rut, I guess, a lot of society will be really held back. And I think that the blindness community, especially in the United States, has been really, really held back. This was a real, I mean, I've told people I think that COVID has at least set the United States back for another 5 years, and I think it set the disability community back for another 10. I mean, this was a
Mm-hmm.
really, really low blow to the disability community, and all communities, really. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, no, it's really challenging. I mean, I've worked with people all walks of life, the poorest to millionaires and executives, and they all have struggles in their own ways.
Right.
You
Of course
know,
they would. Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah,
now, yes, go ahead.
yeah, and often, people who are blind or visually impaired, often they struggle with other mental health issues too, right? So it's not just blindness or vision
Right.
loss. They struggle with depression, they struggle with anxiety, lack of self-confidence. Often they may be in abusive relationships that they are not able to get out, right? And so, yeah, it's tough for a lot of people who, and that's why I said, like, validate the struggles. We don't minimize the struggles, right? But also encourage each other, even just take baby steps, even if they have a hard time, do what they can to help them, because your mental health is so important. It helps you to be creative about finding ways to overcome your challenges. Uh, it's not necessarily like positive thinking and then everything is solved. I don't mean it like that, right? But even having um, an assessment. Okay, what am I struggling with? What am I good at that I can use that to help with my struggles, right? Like you said, you have some struggles, Aaron, but yet you
Of
also,
course I right,
uh,
of course I do, because we all
yeah,
struggle. All we all
yeah,
that's the misunderstanding. Everybody thinks that they're the only one with the struggle. Well, the fact is,
mm-hmm.
100% of the population on the planet has a struggle, because life is a struggle. So of course I have
Yeah,
struggles, right?
that's right. And then you also interview people. You also, uh, you know, uh, bring information and education to the community, right? And so being able to aware of our strengths as well as our struggles, I think it's important, and make the best of our strengths of what we can still have.
So you're absolutely correct. So have you I mean, do you find that you attract a lot of clients who are blind, or have a
Actually,
disability, or is it just a mixed bag of everybody?
Uh, yeah, probably a mixed, because a lot of people sighted come to me because I'm actually, people know me for working with depression, anxiety, and traumas. And actually, a small portion of my clientele um, has vision loss.
Only a small percentage of your
Yeah, yeah,
clientele has
yeah.
vision.
I think I'm
Hmm.
not known in the, maybe I'm not known in
You're
the
no you're
blindness
known
community.
you're known now.
But also I get, and also I'm Canadian too, right? A lot of the people on
you're you're
Facebook
you're
in the
inter,
US.
you're international now. It doesn't matter if you
Uh,
wanted to just relax in your
yeah.
office. You're going to get attention now.
Right, yeah. And also maybe because I do private practice, so some people not able to afford my therapy. So that another
Hmm.
issue too. Hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. This is a very humorous question, a very silly question. Do you
Yeah.
ever do you ever give do you ever give discounts to someone who's blind, especially if they really need help, if they severely need your knowledge and help?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I give discounts to people who really need to see me and they struggle with low income. I wouldn't call like a sliding scale, but I tend to give discounts to people who really need help but are also very motivated.
Mm, mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
don't just give discount for the sake of giving discount. Like if someone shows after 1 or 2 sessions and I notice like they've committed, they're motivated, then yeah, I will work with them and give them discounts for sure.
Excellent. That's
Yeah.
that's really that's really really useful.
Mm.
So what are some, I mean, our countries are similar in a lot of ways and they're very different. So
Hmm.
what's been going on in Canada these days? As you might have known, I've spoken with a lot of the Canadian content creators about what's going on in Canada. Um, and I've for such a nice country you have up there, there's a lot of people that are complaining, and there's a lot of disgruntled people in Canada. Whew. Boy, oh
I
boy, I've
know.
heard some negative things about Canada. I thought it was a nice
Oh,
country.
really? Yeah.
I've heard so many negative things about Canada. Maybe I don't want to go there now because I've heard so many bad stories. But
Oh, really?
the other question that comes to my mind, and you'll know why I'm asking if it's right away. What school for the blind did you go to in Ottawa?
Uh, it was Ontario.
Oh yeah,
It's not Ottawa. It's like Brantford, which is probably several hours from Ottawa. So you're close. You're
right.
very
But I've
close.
never I've never been over the
Yeah.
border, so I'm a little
Yeah,
shaky
yeah.
with the
Oh, you're
provinces.
great. Yeah, yeah, you're
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So, it was called W. Ross McDonald School.
Oh boy,
Mhm.
oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I was afraid of that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That's what I was afraid of. That's very
Mm,
interesting.
mm,
Do you care to, you certainly do not have to, obviously. Do you
mm-hmm.
care to comment on the situation? So one of my other friends in the podcasting community graduated from that school and
Mm,
said some to put it lightly, gave some constructive criticism of the institution and his experience. So
yeah.
did you have that type of experience? Did you have a good experience? Do you want to tell us about your experience there, if it was a better one or?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm definitely not gonna. I'm not minimizing anyone's experience, but this was my experience. I was there, 5 years around there, and my experience was mostly positive. I mean, the food was bad. And at that time, I mean, I was new to the country too, so I was also getting used to Canadian Western food. But other than that, like I did have a positive experience there in general, I would say. Um, I was probably one of the two immigrants in that school, and they did what they could to support my English. Um, and originally, they thought that I was cognitively challenged because I didn't really speak English. But then, probably after several months, they figured that I was relatively smart, even though and so my main struggle was because of English, not because I wasn't smart. And so then they would yeah, they would help to support me. And the friends I had there was also really good because, like I said earlier, I was in a sighted school for about 3 months, and I felt really lost. I felt like no one really understood me. But in that school, like the friends were really good to me, and off even though I was really shy, like I was extremely shy, and my English was really bad at that time. But in some years, I was voted the most popular girl in the school. So I was certainly not bullied or not, yeah, and the teachers were good to me. So I'm not sure. Like I had a good experience, and I was I had all the signs that I could be bullied. I could be uh, ignored by the teachers, but it was the other way around. I was treated quite kindly by the teachers and the students.
Hmm. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I have
Mm-hmm.
spoken to other people who've said the polar opposite of what you just said, but I'm glad that you had a great experience there. Good, good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What now, was it your choice to go to that school? Did a representative from that school just contact your parents at the time, or did you just all of a sudden remember just getting on a bus and being shipped off to that school?
I, you know, I well remember I barely like just a few months in Canada. My mom didn't speak English much at all, so I think it was decided by the lady who sponsored us, our family, over. She was from Salvation Army, and I think she signed me up for the school. So I had no idea. I just went to the school and then realized that all the people there were, blind and visually impaired. I mean, they had people of other disabilities there too. But yeah, it wasn't. I didn't make that choice, but it turned out to be okay.
I'm glad. Good, good. Cool, cool.
Yeah.
So nowadays though, I mean, what is your honest opinion? Can you understand, philosophically? I'm not talking about intellectually, I'm talking about philosophically. Can you understand from a philosophical standpoint where in today's world parents would want to mainstream their blind child, or do you still feel that there is a strong place for schools for the blind? What's your professional opinion on that?
Oh, that's a tricky one, because I've seen some people like in that school for the blind. Two people that I knew there then later on became Paralympians. And many people went to university, but there were also some people would commit suicide later on. because the college system or the sighted world is just too challenging for them, right? And then in the regular school, whether you have blindness or disability or autism or whatever that might be, if you well supported, if your parent, if things at home are going well, and then the teacher is supporting you, it could go really well. But if you struggle at home, and your family is sort of dysfunctional, and then the teachers are not very attentive, and you fall in the gap, that could also be bad too. As you know, I mean, for a lot of people I work with, you know regular, I shouldn't say regular, like sighted people, all kinds of people, they often talk a lot about being bullied in school. And so when you have a disability, that may be the risk as well. So I think it really depends. But I've also known some kids with autism who well supported at home, or home people, students who visually impaired but well supported at home, well supported by the teachers and the school system. They adjust extremely well in the regular mainstream system. So it's hard to say.
It is. I like the way you approach it, though. Very analytical. Your style is very analytical. I really appreciate that. I think it really depends. You kind of hinted on
Mm-hmm.
it. It depends on the parents, what the parents'
Yeah.
expectations are, and if the parents are active, participating parents or not. Of course, nothing can prevent bullying in school. And you also made a very distinctive point that actually all people are bullied in school at some point, at least one time,
Mm-hmm.
for some weird reason. But blind people in the disability community is a far greater risk. But it's also fair to say everyone is bullied. You're absolutely right. Not, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
right, but of course you are correct in saying that everyone has that experience. It's just a matter of how the parents and what the family's expectations are. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Another interesting question. I had another Vietnamese guy on the show. Um, have I published the episode or not? Yes, I have. Just a couple episodes ago, and he was also I forget the full extent of the story, but I was asking him if he follows any content creators, in Vietnam. So, do you
Mm.
follow any like Vietnamese YouTubers? And are there any, and I would hope that are there any people in Vietnam who, are blind or have some sort of disability who have some sort of an opinion podcast of their own, even if it's in Vietnamese? What do you think?
But probably, I mean, the last few years I've been so busy, but I know, like, several years ago, I used to belong to a big Skype group of Vietnamese blind people all over the world, including Vietnam. And they quite, it's really amazing. They don't understand English as much, right? Especially the ones in Vietnam, but they're able to use like JAWS and voiceover, and they use so fast. Like it's a, I think they associate the sounds, not necessarily understand the words, but they yeah, like they use, so they very I mean, some of them would sell lottery tickets on the street, so very poor. And then some of them able to afford internet and use JAWS, use voiceover, have iPhones just like we do. And so, and then yeah, I do listen to some YouTubers in Vietnam as well, because I need because I do Vietnamese counseling as well. So for me to familiarize myself, with Vietnamese culture, things like that, and also the vision loss and the disability culture, that's very important to me. So, but I haven't. I honestly, recently, I haven't been aware of any podcasts from blind people in Vietnam. Not recently. In the past, I was aware of them.
Well, good, good. Well, if you ever
Mhm.
find one, if you ever know of someone like that who's a podcaster and they speak English and they want to come and talk, they're welcome on this podcast. That's for sure. And I
For
would hope
sure.
that someday there would be something like that as technology improves and as more people um, become, I mean, I do have Vietnamese listeners to my podcast. So
Oh
people in
yeah,
Vietnam, yeah, because it shows you the flags where people are
yeah.
listening. So I have the Vietnamese flag is up on my chart. So
Uh-huh.
people there do have access to it. So there is someone listening. I just
Oh
want
yeah,
everybody.
no, actually,
Yeah.
they're not as disempowered as we think. A lot of them,
No,
they're
no.
quite into technology, you know. No, and I don't mean we like you and I. I mean like you know, other people.
Right.
Yeah, they're quite into technology.
Yeah, definitely. So, the another important aspect of all of this to think of is, so, as you work in your field, of course, I don't know how long you've been working in the field, but if you do end up working for 30 years and you look back on your entire career, what is the
Hmm.
one problem that you wish you would say, I'm glad I solved this problem for society? What societal problem do you hope and pray you'll solve if you could only solve one?
Hmm.
The problem
So
with that, the
I,
problem, the problem with that question is there are far too many problems to only bother solving one. But if you could only
right.
bother solving one problem, what would you solve?
Mm. So I've been in the field for about 12 years, and 30 years from now, you know how I think right now is probably different from 15, 18 years from now. But one of the things that I was hoping to do prior to COVID, and then COVID hit, um, is to go back to Vietnam and empower some blind children.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's expand on that. So, what exactly do you want to do to empower some blind children?
Um, I was thinking of, maybe do like either being involved in a school that's already established, or establish some kind of organization that can provide education, and what would be different that I can contribute is my knowledge of psychology, to empower people. So it's not just to educate people, teach them skills, but also to help them understand that even if they're in a challenging situation, there are things they can do to help themselves, when they believe in themselves, right? When they can can do things to make the best of the powerful mind, um, because knowledge is power, and knowledge about ourselves is power. And a lot of the time, people in countries like Vietnam, they just um, focus on meeting day-to-day needs, right? Like survival, and there's way more to that than survival. Like, so when I was in the refugee camp, yeah, we had to survive. We were hungry, we were lacking a lot of things, but having a certain mindset, having a certain attitude, helped us to change situations. To even in that situation, we could still have some happy moments. We could, because of that mindset, I was able to ask for help from a lawyer who was able to overturn the decision. Otherwise, I could have been in Vietnam by now, because we were rejected as refugees. But because I gathered my courage as a 12-year-old, and I spoke to the lawyer and I said, I'm blind, I need help, I need uh, to not be back in Vietnam. He overturned that decision. Right? So there are things that we can do to slowly change our lives for the better, not just survive.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I've never been to that part of the world before. I've traveled all over Europe, and of course I speak French. I've volunteered in the Caribbean. I've done a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but I've never been to your part of the world. I've spoken, and by part of the
Mm-hmm.
world I meant Vietnam. I've spoken to, well, you're only the second Vietnamese person. I've definitely had some Filipinos here on Aaron's Opinion, Indian,
Mm-hmm.
Nepalese, Pakistan. And one thing about your region of Asia that really does stand out, and it's a stereotype that I unfortunately find is somewhat true, is that
Mm.
the expectation, well, first of all, the expectation for people who are sighted is lower, unfortunately, and the expectation for people who have a disability is even lower, unfortunately.
Yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
people in that region of the world just have a lower, they just kind of, how do I even put it? They kind of have just a lower self-esteem and just a lower
Yes.
expectation of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the problem. If there's any problem, that is it, is that people in that region have very low self-esteem. And it's probably many
Mm-hmm.
different reasons why, but they never really, perhaps none of them are truly reaching their fullest potential in their own countries,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
suspect, right? So
Yeah.
what would you do? What activities would you do to really enhance their self-esteem, especially with the Vietnamese children?
Honestly, I don't know yet. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't formulated my plan yet. But um, but things like talking to them. Um, like I remember when I joined that Skype group. Right, a lot of
Hmm.
time we empower each other. We taught each other technology. We taught each other how to use the computer. We talk about. Um, Communication, we talk about dealing with anxiety and things like that. So as children it would be a lot more simple for sure, right? And but it start young. So when you can help children having certain beliefs or certain being aware of certain choices, that can be helpful, but I don't know any specific activities
I
yet.
I completely agree with you. I think children are
Uh-huh.
really easy to teach,
Yes.
because they'll believe you, because
Hmm.
they'll have no reason to question you. So of course they'll believe you.
Yeah. And even if you're poor, you can still have dignity, right? And so even work on that piece, like my parents when we were in the refugee camp, they well, my mom, taught us we poor, but how can we still have dignity, or um, and not steal, not do silly things, or not, right? So, or work hard, but also work smart somehow.
Very good. So, how many times have you been to the United States?
Oh, a lot. I've gone to the U.S. to get guide dog school, so this is my
Oh, oh, oh! I
fifth
had
or
a.
sixth. Yeah.
Where do you go to get your guide dog?
Oh, I've got from different schools. So I went to the Seeing Eye. I went to the one in New York,
Guiding Eyes
Guide
for the
Dog.
Blind, Yorktown
No, Guide Dog Foundation.
Guide Dog Foundation.
And
Right.
but I'm allergic to dogs, and so I
Oh,
I get poodles. So then when I get poodles, then I get from Pilot Dogs. So
oh.
my current dog is from Pilot Dogs.
Is Pilot Dogs in Ohio?
Yeah, yeah, in Ohio.
Oh,
And
great.
then
So
I've
good.
been to the U.S. for personal, leisure
Sure.
reasons too. Yeah, I've been to California. I've been to, well,
Well,
New
and anyway,
York.
I'm a
Mhm.
huge guide dog supporter. I had a guide
Are
dog.
you?
I had a guide
Uh,
dog from Guiding Eyes for the Blind. So that's
right.
that's
Uh-huh.
so good. That's so good.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So did you ever apply to like any of the Canadian schools like Mira or schools like that? Mm-hmm.
No, I haven't actually, because I don't know. It just gave me an opportunity to go to the U.S. too, and it's free for us, right? So I thought, why not? And also, they tend to be bigger too, right? But specifically, my requirement for poodle, many schools unfortunately don't train poodles, but they're hypoallergenic, and for me, I also use them for therapy dogs too, for some
Yeah.
clients. And so poodles would minimize the chance that I would be allergic to my dog. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know what the philosophy is. I think some schools just get, the truth of it is some schools get a good a good breeding pair and get good generations of dogs over and over again, and it's just use the great dogs that they already have. I think that's a
Yeah,
lot of it.
yeah. And they
Yeah.
don't believe in poodles.
Well,
They
it's not a
think,
matter. Well, Quinn, it's not a matter
uh,
of belief. It's not. It's not. It's
yeah,
nothing
yeah.
personal about the poodle
Uh-huh.
community. It's just if they never got there, I guess to put it in something that the way a dog would think of it. If you
Mm,
never dip your tail in the water, then
yeah, yeah.
then you would never
Yeah.
really get into it like that. But I don't
Mm-hmm, yeah.
know. I don't know if Guiding Eyes for the Blind ever had poodles in their kennels. I
Oh,
don't know
I
if
know
they.
the Seeing I tried. I did get one from them, and then I think Guide Dog Foundation. They also have. They started that too, but often the waiting list is really long, and I think that yeah, yeah. So
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I wonder how many other blind people apply to the pilot or that school that you said just to get a. How many other blind people want guide dogs but have to have a poodle? I wonder how strong that demand is. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm
hmm
I'm not sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. Really,
Mm.
really, really
What
good.
kind of dog is yours?
Oh, she was a Labrador Retriever.
Like yellow or black?
A black lab. Yeah.
Oh, they're really
He-
cute. Yeah, I used to have a
Super cute.
black lab too.
And then what about your poodles? What color are your poodles?
This one now, she's kind of cream.
Oh, a
she's very
cream.
she's very small, like about 32 pounds.
So like a
So
little sort of like oatmeal cream, like a little like a little oatmeal color. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, not quite white, not quite white, but yeah,
Yeah, sort of like
she's
oatmeal. Yeah.
mhm.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. Well, that's really excellent. Yeah, and guide dogs. I mean, we weren't really going to talk about it today, but it it didn't quite fit into the discussion of your background. But I must say
Yeah.
that that's another area of huge heated debate in the blindness community, and it's
Yes.
a big issue because so many people are, number one, not able to have a guide dog right now. So many people
Hmm.
are denied access to services because they have a guide dog. And then so many
Yeah.
people are treated poorly in airports because they have a guide dog. And there's just
Hmm.
so many stories about it, just goes on about these weird
Yes.
guide dog things. That's a problem all all by its that whole thing is an episode. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And oh yeah, the challenges for sure, right? And especially like for me as an Asian person,
hmm
sometimes dogs are not being welcomed in the Asian community.
Right, and that's
Right.
another. That's in the States we would say that's a stereotype. We would say Americans
Yeah.
would say like that's kind of secretly true a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think I think what I think is that that's true a little bit, but
Hmm.
it in the end it depends on the person. Some people, if they live in the States their whole life, they get used to the concept of dogs and animals running around.
Hmm.
So it depends on the
Hmm.
people. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. Yeah, like some Asian people love dogs.
Sure,
They love
sure.
dogs, right? But yeah, but for me, it's the benefits for me sort of outweigh the challenges. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really a lot of my clients, they become very relaxed when there's a dog in the room and
Mm-hmm.
they get to play with and that and also my own mental health. I just my dog makes me happy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you, it's very interesting. I'm in a bit of a transitional phase in my own right in my
Oh,
own life.
okay. Yeah.
It's a very long, it's a complex story, but basically, I live with my parents and my brother. We all live together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For I'm sure you can understand for a lot of different reasons and a lot. And
Yes.
we've been really, as you have, as the world has, we've been really held back by COVID. The pandemic
Mm-hmm.
has really thrown us for a loop, but in probably a couple years, I hope to have my own apartment, my own place to live. And when I do, I'm going to have
Mm-hmm.
a parrot or a snake or something like that. I feel
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
calmed. I feel
Yeah.
very calmed when I'm around animals, exotic animals. So it
Yeah.
is it
Uh-huh.
is important. Yeah. Yes. What about you? Have you ever had a client who said, "I'll come to your therapy if I can bring a snake"? Have you ever had an interesting request like that?
No, no. I mean, I've had clients who come to me with their service dogs,
Right.
or yeah, and yeah. So then I would put my dog away or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, so that because my dog can be okay with other dogs, but sometimes the other dogs may not be okay, and so then it becomes distracting. So then
Mm,
I would just take my dog out.
right.
My office from my old workplace used to have a big closet, so I would put her in the closet. Yeah.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. I see.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. And so what are your hobbies? And the other thing is, so if you basically work from home with your home business, do you work every day of the week, just Monday through Friday? Like how do you organize and set up your work schedule each week? How does that work?
Mm. For now, I choose to work 3 days a week. And so yeah, I book pretty full. Like I would see around 5 clients a day. I may have to do 4 days, so we'll see. I only resigned from my recent job only about a month ago, so it's been new for me. But I have had this practice on the side for a few years now, right, to build up to this point. So yeah, I do 3 days. Um, Anywhere from 9 in the morning to 8:30, but I see maximum 5 people per day, so lots of time in between to eat and to relax. And yeah, that's how I do that. And if I need to, I may do 4 days, but no more than 4 days. I used to work at the other place of a kind of like a very high-end mental health center, and I worked there 4 days, and then my private practice 2 more days, or like 6 days, or a lot of work. So now, yeah, I'm enjoying my life here. Just working 3 4 days for now.
Excellent. That's really, really good. And so what steps did you need to take to create your business? Did you have to have like a business license? What are the steps that you take to create your business of Quinlay therapy?
Oh, it's uh yeah, having a business license, choosing a name for my business, and making sure that it's not taken, and then create a website. So having a lot of time, we try to you know we try to create a website on our own. I tried that before, but it's never quite appealing. So I had a really great person to work with to create a website, and then we would keep tweaking together to optimize for search. What do you call that? CEO,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. S
search.
S yeah,
Yeah,
SEO.
SEO, but not
Search,
CEO.
search. No, 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 no worries, no worries.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's weird. And in English, we say it as if it's one word that means something else, but it doesn't.
Yeah,
It's S.
yeah,
They say
yeah.
it super fast.
SEO. Yeah,
SEO,
SEO.
as
Uh-huh.
in S, search engine optimization. I
That's
must
right.
tell
Yeah.
I must tell
Mhm.
you that you've been an outstanding guest, as every guest here at Aaron's Opinion. I don't know what it is, but
Mm.
it's just the gift of learning and the gift of podcasting. The
Yes.
magic is that each of my guests gets better, and I enjoy broadcasting
Hmm.
the conversations and sharing knowledge more and more. So I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
coming to the end of it
Hmm.
today with this hour. I like to keep it around an hour, because anything that goes over an hour, people kind of tune out and they lose
That's
their
right.
attention span. So,
Uh-huh.
but if you've heard any of my content, you know that I like to end the episode by, first of all, thanking you. Second, um, if you can ask me only one question to really make me sweat to see if I'm worth my salt as a podcaster and content creator in the community, what do you really want to know about me? Only one question.
One question. Uh, what drives you to do podcast?
It's the right thing to do, and I see that we need people like myself and many other great content creators in the community who are strong at public speaking and podcasting and are willing to reach out to other
Mm-hmm.
people to help them share their story. So I mean,
Yes.
podcasting for me is a hobby. It's something I just love I just adore doing it. I just love putting together the episodes as an artist. For one, it makes me happy. It gives me
Yeah.
peace in my life, but it also gives me the knowledge and knowing that I'm doing the right thing and helping
Mm-hmm.
one more person. As I say in my outros, as I say, help one person today, help a million people tomorrow, right? So if we can only help
That's right.
one, if I
Yeah.
only help you, I just helped a million. Or if you help
Mm-hmm.
me, we all help a million, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah.
someone,
Yeah.
so Quyn, you are forever welcome here at Aaron's Opinion. So if someone is listening and they want to get in touch with you personally, whether it's personally, professionally, I mean, how can you be reached if someone does want to get in touch with you?
So they can visit my website, quynle.com. So QUYNLE.com. And
Excellent.
they
And
can
if you
contact
can,
me through there.
that's wonderful. Yeah. And if you can send me that website on Messenger, I'll certainly put it in the description of the video, and then
Mm-hmm.
people can contact you from there. That is
Yeah.
really, really good. Quyn, thanks for joining me. I hope that you will always come back anytime. You are always welcome on Aaron's Opinion.
Yeah. Well,
And
thank you very much, Aaron. And it's been my pleasure to talk with you and to talk to your listeners.
all right. All right. My pleasure too. Have a great day.
Yeah.